Hello and welcome to my 1-minute video on how to answer question 1 for both paper 1 and paper 2. Now there is a big problem with this question. The examiners think they're being lovely to you and so they give you the easiest question first. In fact, it is so easy that 95% of students in the country, even the idiots who you think are rubbish at English, still get really high marks in it. The average mark is around 95%. So what's the problem with that? Surely that's a good thing. You go into the exam, you get marks quickly. Bob's your uncle, you're going to do really well. No. What happens is this: your brain is encouraged to think the rest of the exam will also be easy. But what happens? The rest of the exam is not all easy, and consequently you do worse because there's this big hump that suddenly comes up to you and you've got to overcome it. And it feels a much bigger hump because the first question was so simple. However, if you change the order of the questions and leave question 1 till last, it will suddenly be super easy to get loads more marks for the rest of the paper. And finally, leaving it to the end means that if you're running out of time, you can easily bag those 4 marks because they'll only take you about 2 minutes to get. So don't do it first. Do it. Hello and welcome to the 1-minute secrets of paper 1, question 2. In this question, you need to talk about imagery. And imagery only really means 4 things. It means personification, simile, metaphor, alliteration. Yes, there are all other kinds of things that will turn up in the exam, but those 4 are definites. The others are maybe, but these will occur every single time. Next, you do not need to write about sentence forms. You could if you wanted to, but the complex sentence will always appear and the complex sentence will always be in a list. And therefore, if you learn to write about lists and the effect of lists on the reader, you will be able to get top marks. The top-rate skill is to be able to write about contrast. You will see that the writer has chosen this detail here in order to contrast it with something that is opposite there. Old and young, upper class, lower class, morally good, evil, whatever the contrast is, you will spot it. It will always be there. If you can, write in P sentences rather than P paragraphs. And always, all the way through your answer, link what you're saying to the effect on the reader. Not the reader's feelings, but the reader's thoughts. How does the writer control what we think? Hello and welcome to the 1-minute video on paper 1, question 3. This is the change of focus question. It is a structure question. And consequently, what the examiner wants you to do is write about how the focus changes through each point. Well, the obvious way that it changes is every single paragraph there's a different change of focus. You could write about them. However, you only get the marks if you relate that change of focus to how the writer is trying to control how we think about a character or an issue. You can predict what these issues will be, and usually they will be around the patriarchy. They'll be around the roles of men and women in society, or it'll be about education over time in society, or it will be about class. Those things are bound to come up in every single exam question. The next thing you'll notice about structure is all texts are organised around contrast. Writers delight in giving you something positive and then something negative. Spot it and then explain why. What is the writer trying to make you think? And you will get top marks. And finally, because it's a structural question, the examiner will ask you to think about a circular structure. They will go to the ends of the earth to find an extract that actually has a circular structure to it. Well, what does that mean? It means that at the ending, they return to an idea or theme or image that was at the beginning. And that makes it circular. We go back to the beginning and you get the marks by explaining the effect on the reader's thoughts. That's the effect on the reader. Hello and welcome to this 1-minute video on question 4 of paper 1. Here you'll be asked to zoom in on a particular part of the text and think about your impressions as a reader. However, the key word is to evaluate, and consequently to evaluate you need to consider more than one interpretation. The easiest way to do that is to think that texts are constructed around these 5 big ideas. Number 1, attitudes to social class. Number 2, attitudes towards women in society and the patriarchy. Number 3, attitudes towards education. Number 4, attitudes towards poverty and the deserving poor. And number 5, attitudes towards religious faith and science. The easiest way to access these is to ask who is in control in this text and why, and the answer will be from one of those 5 things. This means that the tactic is not to wholly agree or wholly disagree with the statement that you are given, but to find a partial agreement or partial disagreement. This will show you are evaluating. Read the text below. And as I keep telling you, to get more marks, you need to write more. To write more, you need to stop writing in P paragraphs, but P sentences, where you get many more ideas into fewer words so you can make many more points and get many more marks. Hello and welcome to this 1-minute video on question 5 of paper 1. You are probably looking at the describe question, but the examiner wants a structure to your description. No writer in the universe puts into their novel a description that has a structure. That's just not the job of the description. The job of the description is to tell you something about the character or the plot. There is no structure to it. So what is the solution? It is the 6 camera methods. You take a camera and you place it somewhere in your scene and describe what's going on. Then at the same time you place your camera somewhere else and describe a new part of the same scene going on at the same time, and so on with 6 cameras. But not just any random order of 6 cameras, you do it in this order. Zoom out from a bird's eye view, then zoom in, then zoom out, then zoom in, and then zoom out and leave. That gives you a structure. And a final thing that makes your writing absolutely awesome is that when you zoom in on a motif, and a motif is a repeated idea. For example, you might zoom in on a guitar and then again zoom in on some music, and then at the end zoom in on the guitar again and then leave. You can see how I do it in this video here. And that is called the 6 camera method. Never fails. And 16 of your marks are basically for punctuation, spelling, and how you construct your sentences. Therefore, you need to go away and learn how to use colons, semicolons, and brackets. Make sure that you get commas right every single time. If you comma splice and use them instead of a full stop, you will get marked down. No questions asked. Go away and learn to use commas. Finally, if you start each and every sentence with a different word, it will guarantee that your sentences are interesting and your marks will rocket. You might be doing the narrative question. Here are the key things. Start with a crisis. It can be dramatic or it can be tiny and mundane. Do I use the new toothpaste to brush my teeth now? Yes or no? Sounds stupid, but you could have that crisis in your story. The next thing you need is a flashback of some sort. And so there could be some dental disaster that happened earlier in this person's life, or happen to a friend. You will then want something like a circular narrative. This is something the examiners love, so when you get to the end of the story, you will come back to the idea of toothpaste or toothbrushes or teeth. There might be some, I don't know, you kiss and your braces lock and you're stuck together with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, and this either ends in future marriage or disaster. You hate each other and you both have to be snipped apart by firemen. I exaggerate for effect there, but you can see that your crisis does not have to be massive. The next bit of advice is always try to start your sentences in a different way, with a different word, unless it is for effect. That will just force you to write interesting sentences. You won't be able to help yourself, and the reader will go, "Ooh, love this, want to keep reading." Another way of getting a brilliant structure is to use the 6 camera method I taught you in the description question. Follow the link here. And finally, 16 out of your 40 marks are awarded for accuracy of punctuation. Make sure that you know how to use commas instead of full stops, how to use brackets, colons, semicolons, and that is all you need, apart from making sure you use them in your answer. When you do, you can get full marks.